Hello, and welcome to On the Roadmap, a project manager's guide to growing in your career, getting promoted, and succeeding at work. Each episode, I interview a project manager in our community to hear about their stories, their lessons, and what they have deployed as strategies to get ahead in their career. I'm here to provide you with specific, actionable advice that can help you grow in your career. And I'm going to assume that if you're watching, you're as pressed for time as we all are. And as a result, I'm going to get straight to things that you can apply. I'm your host, Michael Yaroshevsky, the CEO and founder of Visor. Visor, the sponsor of this podcast, is a modern, flexible, and beautiful portfolio project management solution that syncs both ways with your apps like Jira and Asana. Today's guest is Elizabeth Harrin. She's the author of Managing Multiple Projects and other books. She has been working in project delivery for over 20 years, mostly in healthcare, which is where she works now. She's a fellow at the Association for Project Management, a mentor and trainer, and the driving force behind the very popular blog, The Rebel's Guide to Project Management. Let's get her on the roadmap. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hello, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh, yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. I'm excited to get into it. As is tradition here on the show, our viewers are interested in unique perspectives. So, the first thing I'd like to ask you to share, a little unprompted, what is the one thing you believe about project management that few others recognize or understand?
Oh, that's a good question to get started. I think one of the things that I still see people talking about is that the project manager's job is to do the tasks or get stuff done. I think that we need to be more strategic than that. We
Hmm.
need to be the kind of people that speak to power, that get involved early with the business cases. And the kind of projects that I find the hardest are when someone else has done the business case and done all the ideation, and then they've given me the thing and said, right, deliver that. And you think, well, okay, but how did we get to this point? And all that useful context and background is lost. So that's what I'd say is, if you're getting involved in projects, try to get involved as early as possible because it's really helpful.
Hmm. That's interesting. Let's expand on that a little bit. What have you
Okay.
seen to be the ways in which getting involved early have been helpful? Or where have you found examples in the past where you were able to sort of save a project from going off the rails by being more proactive like that?
I think understanding why you're doing something is really important. And I often think project managers get given packages of work to do without any of that business context. And you can be more valuable to your employer if you understand the business context because that frames the decisions that you make. So you might look at a decision and think, well, does this get us closer to our goal? But if you only have the goal as deliver the thing and not
Yeah.
all the strategy that went into the business case, all the potential benefits, all the risks, you're only making decisions with half the information. And I think, the projects that I've got involved early and seen through, like there's one that's happened quite recently where I was involved with the supplier selection and the all that thought process that went into it and building relationships with the suppliers. And now we're at a point where we're doing um, the next steps, and all that history is really useful because people know me, I know them, and you've built up really good relationships with all of that business context that you're taking forward into the delivery phase.
That's really interesting. All right. I want to move on to my first topic here, which is portfolio project management. It's something you write about. And I think you'll have a great perspective on this. I tend to think that as the number of projects grows, getting transparency and visibility into what's going on becomes more and more difficult, yet more and more important. So I wanted to ask you,
Mhm.
in your experience through years and working with some of your clients in your community, what have you found to be the most effective ways to gain that visibility that you can trust?
Do you mean as an individual project manager working across 5 projects, or do you mean as a department manager looking at a portfolio of work across a team?
I'm thinking a
It's
little
kind
bit
of
more
similar,
around the.
but
Yeah, it's similar, but I'm thinking a little bit more around the department manager, maybe somebody who's a little bit
okay.
less connected to it and working with various project managers, or maybe one over committed one who's committed to multiple projects at once.
I think it's really important that you end up with one version of the truth, and whether that is very fancy enterprise software, whether it's a simple spreadsheet, it doesn't really matter, but you need to have a, a view of everything that's going on. And I think what we often miss out when we're doing portfolio work is all of that extra stuff that project managers do, that which might be line management, or it might be strategy sessions, or it might be just advising other people in the organization on how to manage their projects, training, whatever it is. So there's a baseline of activity that we all just have to get done. And then there's our capacity to take on other projects. And you can't look at what you're delivering across an organization without having that balanced view. So you've got to start with a big list of everything, but in a way that you can trust. So the way that you asked about how do you get that trusted sense of data,
Yeah.
and I think it comes down to having good relationships with your stakeholders. So in this case, it would be the project managers or the team leaders who are doing the delivery, as well as the project sponsors who would hopefully be giving you an indication of priority. And then that helps you sift through to see where do we want to spend the most of our time.
Hmm.
So trusted sources of data and making yourself a trusted source of data and one place for it all to go, because I've seen it, it's so hard to try to manage a portfolio of work when you've actually got a department plan, an organizational plan, a BAU plan. You just need
Mhm.
one plan, and then you can see everything in one place.
What do you find is the most common cause of either untrustworthy data or multiple sources of truth, which seem to be the two major sort of challenges within that domain?
I think it's, do you have this phrase in the States? Your eyes are bigger than your belly.
Yeah,
I don't think
yeah.
it's deliberate. I don't think it's deliberate miscommunication either. I just think our ambition is often bigger than the capacity of the team. And you have very excited senior leaders and people who really want to make a difference in their organization, who are enthusiastic and dedicated and just want to get loads of stuff done. And often they'll go, they might be trying to do work that's not on the single plan. They might be trying to do, um, more things than realistically we've got capacity to do, and then they're not lying about it, but they might be estimating less accurately because of enthusiasm. So optimism bias, I suppose, is where I'm going with that thought. And then that gives you inaccurate data, and it gives you potentially things happening around the edges of your single source of the truth, because people just generally want to make a difference, and they're trying to do their best work and trying to do the right thing. And I think sometimes organizations try and do a little bit too much.
Hmm. Yeah, I was going to say the good intentions there kind of backfiring a little bit by overcommitting and spreading the group too thinly.
Yes, and you can come back from that. And in a way, I'd rather have um, high demand for project delivery and people wanting to do lots of stuff. And then you
Yeah.
can sort of say, okay, well, if we look at all of this, what's our capacity? What goes on to the backlog? What sort of things can we do when we get more capacity? Or do we need to recruit more people because we have great ambition and we've got the budget and we just want to get on and affect this change and make it happen? So there's always ways around it, but it's just making sure that as a portfolio leader, you've got visibility of what everyone wants to do, and then you can start to think through, and what can we actually do?
Hmm. So let's take this thread of overcommitted project managers and look to the future with the big elephant in the room of artificial intelligence, ideally empowering project managers to do more. And the one
Hmm.
question that I keep thinking about and I keep hearing on people's minds is what part of the project manager job might get automated away through AI so that we could focus on other more important ideally priorities. What do you think? Where do you see opportunities for automation, and where do you find it very unlikely that automation will take that role?
I think there are certain things that we've seen that are being automated now, and I think more and more software tools will get AI powered features, which can only be a good thing, really, if it comes to synthesis of data, speeding up routine tasks, workflows, approvals, anything that can be go through an automation process, or has to go through a process. We can standardize, we can make checklists, we can automatically push things where they need to go. All that is great. I think there'll also be a set of features around reporting. So synthesizing data, surfacing information that we can then put into a report, or creating the reports directly. And you know, I'm sure a portion of the people listening to this will be grateful to get rid of status reporting off of their to-do list, because it's not the most inspiring part of the job in
Mm.
many ways. So I think that there will be some pieces that we can certainly automate, but I think the bits that won't go will be the, the ability to be able to join the dots. So if you think of what we do as project managers, we're the glue that holds the team together, and we don't necessarily need everything to go through us, but if somebody says, oh, this change is happening, or we want to make this change, we're the people that go, and that's going to affect that team, and we need to get it approved by that person, and we need to make sure that this design is updated, and we just hold everything together because we see the big picture. And I'm not sure yet that AI has the capacity to be able to do that. And I also don't think that those stakeholder relationships, those trusted working relationships, will ever get replaced by a computer. So that all the team management stuff, the morale boosting stuff that we
Mm.
do, the gratitude that we show to people who've worked overtime to get a release in over the weekend, if you got an automated status update from the AI that said thank you for your effort this week, you'd be a bit disappointed, wouldn't you? Instead of a heartfelt email from your manager. So there's definitely space for it. It's definitely coming. It's already here, and we have to learn how best to work within that environment. And the answers aren't fixed in stone. We say, what could we use it for? Well, we could create that. What do we want to use it for? And build the solutions that are the most appropriate for us.
Hmm.
Does that answer your question? I feel like this is
Yeah,
quite
it
an
does.
evangelical topic. I just
It
rambled on.
No, it sounds very sensical the way you've broken it down, and that the project manager's responsibilities around relationship building, trust building, morale building, those things that are innately very human to human, are the aspects of the project management role that are least likely to be able to be automated or replaced through artificial intelligence. Now, I do genuinely hope that we will see. And I'm curious if you've seen it, because I've mostly had mixed results myself, and heard about mixed results from the actual efficacy of some of the AI features that are in tools today. Where are you seeing, or are you seeing any real changes in people's workflow or lives based on this today, or is it still mostly promise and a little bit of flash?
It's mostly promise and a little bit of flash. I wanted to know that the answer to that question. So I did a survey for um, the second edition of Managing Multiple Projects. And one of the questions I asked was, are you using AI tools? And 19% of respondents said they've got access to and are using AI tools, which means 80% of people are not. And I use ChatGPT. I find it quite helpful if I'm brainstorming, or if I think of things like I need to create a report, give me an outline template. Um,
Mm.
but because you can't put commercially sensitive data into it, and I have to be really careful about how I use it and what I tell it, it's not commercially useful. But in terms of giving me a head start, I know people who use it, for example, if they're not English native speakers, they will type in their emails and then they'll say, polish my email so I can send it to my project sponsor. And
Mm.
then they can just add in the commercially sensitive bits, put the names back in that they've taken out. And it can help in lots of ways like that, for speeding up some of the things that might have taken you longer, like grammar checking, or um, drafting a template, or coming up with an outline of a presentation because you have to give a status update to a different team. But in terms of built into the software, I think we've probably got a long way to go before most project managers see it making a demonstrable difference to their day.
That's interesting. That's wildly different than what you would expect by going to all of these software companies' homepages that
I
are
know.
AI powered. And yeah, it's just I think it's very hard to find the parts, because obviously, we're in the business of, portfolio project management software. We're exploring, and we did research on a number of things, and we decided not to build things that the research showed us looked better on paper than in practice, because I think you have the potential to water things down, or maybe even upset customers more. And in many cases, I think
Mm.
the capabilities of these systems may just not be clear enough of what you can entrust it to do. And that's one of the main limitations is how far can you push it? How much can you rely on it? I know that I was very excited when I was at the Atlassian team conference just this year. And they were announcing Rovo and the agents, and I started exploring it, and I think there's some promise, but it's just not something that I'm seeing an opportunity to roll it out to my team and suddenly feel like we have gained any hours in the day yet.
No, there was an AI chatbot on a website I was looking at the other day, and it it said this is an AI powered chatbot, and it just parroted back text I could have read on the website, and I'd already read all of that, and I couldn't find my answer, which is why I wanted to speak to a human, and I'm
That's
just getting back
funny.
the
It was
same stuff.
a
So
website interpreter. Yeah. But you know what was interesting about what
yeah,
you said is, and I've noticed this myself, I've been playing a lot with the OpenAI real time system, which just came out in the preview, and you can, speak to it. And it is very good at switching between languages fluidly. And I think to your
okay.
point, maybe about multicultural, multilingual companies and environments, it could be a great boon to translating across.
Mm.
I heard from a friend who's in the communications field that language translation is something where some AI models are actually vastly superior to your regular Google Translate, which has been my go-to for many years.
Mm. I think the thing we have to get better at is putting the data in. And if your organization doesn't capture any data now, whether that's masses of text to be translated or project performance data, then the AI tools have got nothing to work with in terms of
Yeah.
looking back over the history, surfacing risks, being able to predict how long a task will take based on previous estimates. You have to capture all of that and store it in a way that it can be interrogated
And
first
there we return to the
before
same
it becomes
problem that
distorted.
the human project managers face, which is getting the accuracy, that visibility, like we were just talking about. And so one source of truth you
Exactly.
can trust. It is so important and yet so hard. Well, on that
Mm.
topic, I'll move us on to the third topic I wanted to discuss, which was stakeholders. And stakeholders is a topic about which you give a lot of attention in your writing and the work that you do because it's so important. It's a core part of what we do. And so I wanted to ask you, what amount of transparency and visibility into the raw health of projects do you think is appropriate? Do you think it's appropriate to filter or massage that information, that source of truth, before sharing it? Obviously, we talk about having the canonical source of truth, but do we just provide that raw to everyone, or is it okay to provide a projection of that into a set of data that we're more comfortable sharing or feel is more appropriate?
Well, I don't think I would tell stakeholders I was massaging the data before I shared it with them. I think that might be taking it a bit too far. I I think I'm up for full transparency. I think they should have access to everything. But in my experience, stakeholders like an easy life and would
Hmm.
prefer that you present something to them in a format they can easily understand. So I think a lot depends on the willingness and project management maturity of your stakeholder community. If they want to go into the data and see live dashboards and real-time information, then why not have at it? You can have access to all of that data, but there's a bit of a cultural shift to move some people towards that because that requires them to actually go into the software and interrogate the data and see the things. Often, I think stakeholders prefer to receive one slide, a page, an email update, something like
Mhm.
that, which is us interpreting the data from our single source of the truth and putting it into a format that either meets with our corporate template or that gives stakeholders the information that they're looking for. So I wouldn't say we change the data, but I would say I do change the presentation of the data to meet the needs of the people looking at it so they get what they need from it. So, for example, a report to one stakeholder might be different to a report that goes out more broadly across the organization because the people who are closer to the project will understand the acronyms and the history. People who are further away from the project would need more context, more explanation, um, less shorthand. So I'd say the data and the status stays the same. And if something's going wrong, you have to tell people and you have to make people aware of that. But perhaps the status report to 10 stakeholders is not the place to break the news. that something is needs their attention. That's a phone call.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You don't want to just lob that over the email fence on Friday at 5 p.m. I totally understand. And I agree with your concept of the synthesis into a format that is digestible and consumable because very few really want to access that raw, fire hose of data. So I agree that finding that format and adhering to your internal organizational patterns and standards and templates is important. But um,
Mm.
yeah, interesting that you're saying how important it is for that transparency, even the ugly transparency sometimes to be surfaced.
I think so because we don't gain anything by keeping that to ourselves. Because typically, if project is in trouble, you need somebody to listen and take action and make a decision and help. And some things we can fix ourselves, great, but often the more serious the problem, the more likely it is that you need your senior leader to ring the senior leader at the supplier and bang heads together so that you get the outcome that you need, or
Yeah,
to free up another resource or to make a prioritization decision. And when we get stuck, we need to be able to explain the situation and what action we need them to take. And telling everyone that it's all fine, it's all fine, it's all fine, it doesn't serve the purpose of getting the work completed. So yes, you don't want to be going to your stakeholders every 5 minutes saying, "Oh, the sky is falling." But
yeah,
when you have a genuine problem, we have a red, amber, green status reporting process and an escalation process, and it's there to help us. So there's no reason why you shouldn't say, "Oh, my project is now amber or yellow," I think you call it in the States, don't you? Um, and we might need this action taken. I think we can deal with it, but I'll let you know next week. Oh, actually, okay, next week's come. We need some help. Please, can you step in? This is the challenge that we're having. We need support. Do we do this? Do we do that? Here are my recommendations. Okay, thanks. Now we can move on.
yeah, that makes sense. Well, we are approaching the end of the show. And as is tradition, I wanted to ask you one final question, which is what question do you want other project managers who are on the show to answer?
Oh, I would say you can ask somebody if you could think of any project in history, what's the project that you wish you managed and why?
Oh, I like that.
Add
Um,
that to your repertoire.
Yeah, that's a good one. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth. That's about all the time we have for today. We like to keep them a little bit bite sized, but this was wonderful. We'd be delighted to have you back on the show again. I wanted to thank Visor, of course, for sponsoring this. Thank you to our viewers for joining and making time for yourself to improve your career. And until next time, I'll see you on the roadmap. Thank you, everyone.